Shall we start?
Let's start.
Okay. Hi, Libby. My name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. Thank you so much for actually saying yes to be interviewed today. And I cannot wait to actually talk about the topics that you stand up for so strongly. And I think it's especially very important today. And to be honest, I think the angle that you're covering, I might not know it that very detailed. So I'm gonna prod
Okay.
you with some questions in a bit. Okay, so I'm just gonna read a statement you put in a bit of an introduction for our
Okay.
listeners today. Yeah. So, hi guys, we have Libby Vincent here today joining us. So she wrote, I'm quoting you. Most leadership advice is written for most leaders, which means it's not tailored for women. The result? Shorter tenures for female CEOs compared to their male counterparts, and a record number of women leaving the workforce. Unless we're advocating for radical change, the pragmatic approach to improving corporate diversity is not to rage against the machine, but to learn how it operates. This is crucial not just for personal success, but to reshape the landscape of leadership. It is not merely about playing the game, but it's also mastering to eventually rewrite the rules. So Livy here, she's an ex FSTE 50 and finance executive, and she's on a mission to help women love leadership. Founder of Hodology, she believes DEI initiatives are a waste of time. Wow, that's a big statement.
I know.
Wow. Okay, so can I ask, what is Hodology? Start with that.
Let's start with that, what hodology is. So the word comes from the Greek and it's the study of pathways. So in the same way as biology is the study of life, hodology is the study of pathways. And so it is often used in neuroscience or psychology to understand the way that neurons branch in the brain or the way ideas might split into smaller ideas, how they work off. Also, hikers use it a lot to talk about the way that they might walk across a mountain range, for example. But when I found this word, I was so excited about the possibility of applying that idea of branching pathways to the ways that we think about our career, the way that we make decisions about which way to go. And often when we talk about climbing, we talk about this ladder that goes up and down. Somebody is always in front of you that needs to get out of the way before you can make progress. And all
Yeah.
of the broken rungs and the steps. Let's move that to one side and instead think of our careers as a mountain with lots of different ways to the top. I don't know. Do you climb mountains? Are you a hiker?
Sometimes.
I'm
Not
gonna
an
take that
avid
back.
one, but
No,
sometimes.
you're like not a willing one. If somebody
Yes. Okay. Seldom. So I'm not even gonna. Yeah. Because if my friends are watching this, they're gonna be like, "No, Nicolette, she's lying."
No, she's not a hiker. So
Yeah. I'm a runner though. I run.
okay,
Okay.
when you go out running, there are days when you put your shoes on and you go out and you're like, today I am staying on the flat. I just want to get out. I want to get round and get home because that's all I have today. And there are other days when you think, I'm going to go this way. There's some steps. Like I can run up those steps, I can go through town, or I can take something more peaceful. But you make the choice about the path that suits you. There's nothing, you're the same runner as you were yesterday and you will be tomorrow. There's nothing wrong with you as a runner. But on different days, there are paths that feel more comfortable. They're the ones that you want to be exploring right now. So hodology, the word, means this study of pathways. I stole it and I'm applying it to the way we think about our careers so that we don't think of this up and down one route and that it's us that needs to change or something about the individual that needs to improve. But instead, we think of all of the different options that we might take each day and which works best for us given how we feel, where we are in our life, our responsibilities, the organization, just being really mindful about choosing a path that suits for us rather than trying to change ourselves to fit into a path that somebody else has chosen for us.
Ooh, there's a lot to unpack. I don't
Right?
even know where to start. Okay. Okay, well, I want to ask a very simple question that I read from the statement earlier.
Okay.
Why do you think DEI initiatives are a waste of time? Mm.
This is difficult because I know there's a lot
Controversial?
of money, right? Well, I don't know if it's as controversial as you might think it would be, because
Okay.
we've seen a lot of money invested in DEI initiatives. So that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. Sometimes people put B for belonging on the end of it, but there are some issues in organizations which make it difficult. So one of the first steps they might take is to measure the individual. But when we start categorizing people as the color of their skin or their nationality or their heritage, do you bucket people together or do you respect the intersectionality of where they come from? So that initiative of the thing they are trying to move, you'll see lots of organizations talk about diverse candidates. Is a
Yeah.
woman as good as a homosexual, as good as somebody who isn't white? How do you even have that language around what it means to bring in diversity in a way that respects the individual? So I think there's a big problem there about how we measure
Mm-hmm.
diversity and how we can see whether or not what we're doing is having the right impact. I think a lot of the initiatives are about awareness. And if awareness changed anything, we would be light years away from where we are right now. If you think of all the protest marches, of all the information we are in an age of information. Everybody can find
Yeah.
out almost anything they want immediately. And so if you are still explaining things to people, there is something else there. There is something else which is stopping them from coming on that journey with you, which isn't information. So if you can't measure the
Right.
impact, if you're focusing on giving people information when they already have access to that anyway, I don't think the mission or the values that are behind the initiatives are the problem. I absolutely agree we need more diversity of thought in our decision-making bodies because we need to make better decisions. I think a lot of what is labeled DEI within large organizations is paying lip service. They're rainbow washing or pink washing, whatever that looks like, without committing to real systemic change for the people that work
Change.
in
Yeah.
the organization.
So, next question. Why do you think the majority of leadership advice fails to resonate with women in the corporate world?
I had an amazing opportunity to work at a very high level within an organization. So I was bringing together executive teams following the merger of two large organizations. And I am such a bookworm. Like I am a Hermione schoolgirl. I am there studying,
Oh,
right?
right.
So
You're
I
the
went to the
reader.
book. Yes, I'm the reader. So I went to the books and I got all the information I needed and I passed it on to the executives that I was working with. This is how you build credibility, influence, and trust as you establish yourself as a leader in this new organization or as a new leader in an existing organization. And I saw the advice that I gave to the men I worked with had the
Strong.
results you might expect, right? The book said do this and then you do that and then the thing happened. I gave the same advice to some of the female executives and it was different. And not because
Mm.
of who they were or how they lead or the way they did it or anything about their work history or the way they showed up. What made the difference was the way in which 1,000 people interpreted her actions was different to the way that that same 1,000 people interpreted his actions. And it's more about the way in which your actions are interpreted when you get to that level of leadership than it is the way you show up. So, one, because I want to give good advice, and two, because I hate reading the books and then getting it wrong. I'm like, why isn't it working? Why aren't my books working for me? I started looking into the research that goes underneath this. So all of these books will have footnotes and all of the papers that were referenced in them. So I start looking for those papers to understand what's happening. And there is decades, not just one or two, but thousands of research papers that span the past 20 or 30 years, looking at the experience of being a woman in leadership in large organizations and how that's different to the experience of men in large organizations. And it absolutely has changed. Over that past 30 years, there has been a marked change in what that looks like. And it's different in different cultures as well. So the experience of a female CEO in India is different to the experience of a female CEO in America. But almost universally, for large organizations, the ways in which her actions are interpreted are colored by the cultural expectations of women in that society, which, when you think about it, makes
It's
sense.
pretty much the same.
Right? Right? It makes sense. People are always going to view you, if your culture views genders differently, you're always going to be viewed through that lens. And I suspect that the reason the books that are on the bestseller list or the articles which are shared again and again on LinkedIn don't reference all of these studies which look specifically at the experience of women is because most leaders aren't women. And when you write a book and you want it to be a best-selling book, you write it for the most number of people that are going to benefit. And I don't think it's manipulative. I don't think there's any plot to try and hide this information or to give incorrect information. I don't think that it is badness in the industry. But I do think there's this huge amount, this vault of incredible relevant information, which isn't bubbling up. And it isn't being written in a way that makes it accessible to those that need them. Because do not doubt me, these papers are hard to read.
I am just curious right now. Why is that so? Why is that so? Why are they not showing this?
I think some of it is just the market. It's the books that people choose to publish. I think sometimes when we talk about leadership books for women, what they focus on is how difficult it is. So we get lots of books around
negative. It starts with the connotation.
Yeah. Did you know that we look at the gap and what we need to do to bridge the gap, or how unfair it is, or how we need to understand? It's this awareness piece again, making people even more aware of this imbalance. Whereas some of it may be that there's a pushback, that people go, well, I am the same leader as he is, so I don't need different information. And even that mindset shift to say, it's not about whether or not you are a different leader or whether or not you have different experience. It's about the way in which you are viewed that lends credibility to what you say. It changes how you influence others. It means that there's different priorities. The paper that's kicked this all off for me was a paper called Burnt by the Spotlight. Also, some of these papers have incredible names, like really catchy names for what is a quite difficult to read academic paper. So Burnt by the Spotlight looked at the way in which the succession announcement correlated to the tenure of a CEO. So by that, I mean the little press release that you have got a new job, congratulations, and your new employer puts a notice out that says, we are delighted to say that Nicolette joins
welcome
us
so-and-so.
Yes, she joins us after 10 years of being amazing somewhere else, and she's going to be brilliant here. They did a study that compared the impact of those announcements for women and the impact of the announcements for men. for the same organization for a similar role. And they found that the more praise, the more positive that announcement was about women, the shorter their tenure in that role. So they kept that CEO position for a shorter period of time.
Oh, you mean do they step down voluntarily, or their contract is just shorter than the male?
They did
candidate.
interviews afterwards to understand. There's another organization that looks at the push-out score, which is whether or not you've, because organizations always say, we have decided that it's time that they go, or they
step
are leaving.
down.
Yeah, right. There's that.
To pursue other interests. Yes.
That. Everything's fine. We just all decided. There is an organization called Exec Change that looks at the push-out score, and they do things like analyze the stock price, they look at performance and press coverage in the time leading up, and they have found that the push-out score on average is higher for female CEOs than it is male CEOs. And I would love to give you this information for non-binary CEOs, but it just isn't available yet. So when I talk about those two genders, it's because that's the way the science has captured it so far. So there is if you bring those two together, female CEOs are more likely to be pushed out, which may be part of why their tenure is shorter. But that is even before your first day. You haven't even got into your office. You don't know where the coffee machine is. Right, you haven't even chosen which shoes you're going to wear.
You haven't even memorized how to get to your office, your new office, because it's at a different level.
Right, everything.
Of the building.
Before you even get out of bed on your first day, something
people are already plotting,
right?
Push you out,
that may have an impact on how long you are able to keep that role. But when you know this, imagine the difference it would make if you knew that, and because sometimes it's a throwaway thing. Somebody in HR writes it. The outgoings, nobody puts a lot of thought into this announcement. But when you think it could perhaps be damaging, maybe you put a little bit more thought into it. Maybe you look at the way in which you share this information, what's included, so that you set her up for success in a way that is different, not better, but just different to the way you would do it for a male CEO.
Okay, I'm so interested, Libby. How would you do it if you're the one pushing out the announcement?
So they did some interviews. They identified a couple of potential reasons. One is that sometimes women or female CEOs are given a role in an organization which is already starting to fail. So it's referred to as the glass cliff. This idea that a company is struggling, and so they think, well, we've tried everything else, we might as well try a woman. Or
the last substitute.
Yeah. Or it's struggling and they think women are nurturing and they'll be able to turn it around. Or
pick
they
it
think
up.
we will have a female leader because she is disposable, and then we can get somebody else in afterwards. So she can deal with the difficult part. There are lots of reasons, and there's a fabulous book on it that is well worth reading. That's The Glass Cliff. But if you are making this succession announcement, if you announce new female CEOs with lots of information about how well they performed in their last organization, it can have potentially negative effects where it can land with the audience as if you were trying to justify the hire.
Why? It's like it's not natural. I mean, it's not natural because she has to have that justification more than a male candidate.
Right? So it can be the same text, but because it's for women, people go, are they trying to justify her role? In which case there is more attention to what she's doing. That higher level of scrutiny means that the mistake that we all make as we are trying to find our feet are amplified. There's more discussion.
Right.
That's one option. One might be that she is perceived as overconfident. And so there is
Oh my gosh. People,
unconscious removal of, I know,
it's
right?
so
People are jerks.
it's so hard to be a woman, but I would not change it. I would like to be
Right?
reborn as a woman again. Yeah. Yeah, it's oh gosh.
So
I'm
one
not
is there might be a removal of support because she sounds overconfident. The other is an experience called stereotype threat, where we know the stereotypes that people share about us. So I am Scottish, and I know that people, when they talk about the Scots, talk about us being drunk or cheap or right. So I'm aware of these things. So if I go out with friends, I am paying for drinks, I'm paying for the taxi, because rather I'm aware there's this stereotype which is associated with part of my identity, and I go out of my way to counteract it. So if you are aware,
it's embedded in the subconscious.
you start
Oh,
reacting rather than choosing.
yeah.
And so if this announcement says she did all of these incredible things, and you're aware that people think that you've set the bar too high, maybe you start making riskier decisions because you don't want people to think you're too soft as a leader.
You're mild.
Right?
She's not a risk taker.
So
Does
you
she
start,
is she even worth the promotion? Yeah.
you bring, and the worst thing about this is it doesn't even need to be something that's in the organization. Everybody can be on your side. Everybody can be cheering you on, and you can be set up for success. But if something in your announcement triggers that fear in you that people will have assumptions, so say your announcement says that you're really good at finance, you might think, well, maybe they don't think I'm good at strategy, and then you overcompensate. But it's complicated
Again,
in a way.
it's imposter syndrome talking. I hear you say that. It's like that's it's there's so many layers to it. The societal perception, and then that could be triggering you internally as well, and then you wanting to perform your best because you're chosen, or then again you have a notion that, oh, did they choose me because am I really capable, or is it because, and there are other things like because so and so is not, yeah, there's nobody else, like I'm the last
Right.
hope for this.
Well, it's once you get to that level, there isn't the same confidence gap that early and mid-career managers experience. So it's more of this overcompensating to try and offset the stereotypes we might have about Asian women or Black women or middle-aged women. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. There's always something that you think, I don't want to be thought of as the typical, and so I will act in a way against, even if it's not the best way to act in that situation. So there's lots going on, and it's all part of this announcement, which reflects heavily on past successes. So when you take that into account, if you were, before we go on, absolutely the worst thing somebody could put in it is, we have hired a female CEO as our continued commitment to diversity. Just,
Yeah, that's just
the worst. Can you imagine? Oh. Anyway, so if we park all of that and instead your succession announcement talks about what you are going to do. The reason that you were given this job is not what you did previously. It's not that you turned around this company. It's not that you increased share price somewhere else. It's not that you refocused the strategy of a completely different product or organization. You instead talk about the reason the board chose this individual for that role is because of your focus on luxury
XYZ.
or or globalization or simplification or digital transformation. Whatever the thing was that set you apart from the other candidates, that said your vision for this organization looks like this, it helps establish where you are going rather than where you have been.
So how does Hodology help in that sense?
in that step. So when
Yeah.
you come up to a point, we go through, especially when we are under stress or we are in unfamiliar circumstances, we tend to do the thing we've done before, or we will follow the path that's laid out for us. So I was speaking to a woman who was taking over leading the distribution centers for the biggest e-commerce website, right? So she would be responsible for the operations of these distribution centers. And her boss had laid out for her the people that she should meet in her first month. So these people should be in your calendar for the first week, these people for the next week, and these people for the next. And we spoke before she started about what that would look like for her. Where Hodology comes in, if we think back to this idea of all of the different paths that are available to you, part of what happens when you join a new organization is people are watching what you are doing. So if the first person you meet is the CFO or somebody in finance, everybody starts talking. She really cares about money. Money's the most important thing to her. The first person she met was the person who's in charge of the money. Is there going to be investment or cost
cutting?
Right?
Yeah.
All the little all the gossip starts, right? So rather than going in and following the path that is set for you, it's about understanding all of the options. So you could start your job and not leave your office for a week. You could spend the whole week just reading. And so you don't speak to anybody until you've got a really good understanding of it. Or you could go out and you could meet everybody that works for you, so your direct reports, and spend the whole week with them, and then they become your priority. Or you could spend it trying to speak to the most senior people in the business. Whatever choice you make, you have many more paths than you might expect, because we follow paths that have worked for us before, we follow paths that are suggested to us by others, we follow paths that are in the books that we've read, or the articles, or the podcasts. But when you take a moment to stop and recognize where you might be reacting out of fear, where you might be following a path that's not for you, which are the ones that are most suited to who you are? And so we decided that the thing she would do on her first day is she had a high visibility vest with her name on the back, and she would spend her first week on the floor in the warehouses. And she would walk around and meet people, and they would see who she was, and she could have tea and she could chat to people. So she became a familiar face that people could approach. And next week, she would meet with senior leaders and other areas of the organization. She would get to know that. But she wanted on her first day, because that's the leader that she is, and the thing that was important to her, to meet, in terms of hierarchy, the people who are most operational, those without direct reports, even though she was super senior. So that's where Hodology comes in. We highlight what you might think is your only choice, and show that there are many more paths available, and explore which one of those paths are best aligned to the leader that you want to be, what you want to be known for, the legacy you want to build, how you want people to relate to you. Because that's the big gap, is people, when you join a new organization or you become a leader, it's not just about you learning about them. They need to learn about you. And for many Western cultures, that is more important for female leaders than it is male leaders. They need to get an idea of who you are. So everything you do needs to be a reflection of who you are and not a reflection of who somebody else is.
I love that, because
are you having a unknowingly,
yes, I am, because I can resonate. I joined because I have a 9 to 5 as well. So I joined this new company where I am right now, and it's a completely different role. It's a shared service center, very process driven, but I come from a consulting background. So I'm more on connecting with people. But they're probably some of them are gonna listen to this podcast. But I think they're they part of the reason why one of the reasons why they hired was because of, I think the element of DEI there is definitely a factor,
Mm.
um, and also because they just I think they just thought that I could bring something different to the team. So and when I joined, I had uh, it was a culture shock because it wasn't something that I was familiar to. Although I did accounting before and finance, but then when I joined, it's really process driven. So um, and I stood on my principle that okay, I will learn as much as I can, but I'm not going to lose myself in that process. So it was a bit of a power struggle in the beginning with the management, but I think at this point they have recognized that okay, Nicolette is good in one thing. We cannot force her or mold her into something that she is not. Let her strength shine in a different way. And then
Yes.
for what, yeah, and what for whatever role that we hired her for, she might not have gotten it 100%, but she has gotten something. What I did was they let me handpick my new team, and my new team members are more inclined to process driven responsibility. So it's like, okay, I have my team who's that, but I can also branch into something else, which is a new something new for the whole team. So that's why it's yeah, I resonate with that, and
You feel
I'm
it.
also not somebody. I'm also not somebody who likes to follow the norm. I'm a bit of a rebel.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I love talking to visionary leaders like yourself.
It's so
Okay, so
interesting
yeah.
because I bet your organization will have DEI initiatives, but really, when you bring somebody in who thinks differently because they have a different approach to decision making or leadership, that's the point at which you make people feel like they can be themselves in that organization rather than bringing them in, trying to fit them into a mold, this path that they wouldn't normally fit down, and then afterwards coming on and being like, hey, you can be yourself here as long as you do it in exactly the same way as everyone else.
And it can be a very scary experience for a person that is the only one there. And yeah, I felt that. So yeah, but it's time has been kind to me, and I've also been patient. So yeah, I mean silently I'm just grateful that I hung on until now.
Well, although you are saying time has been patient and you hanging on there is the thing that has made the difference. There are lots of people.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah. Had I left, it would have,
Yeah.
yeah.
You could have left,
Yes.
you could have tried to change yourself. And then when you try to change yourself, you're
Mm,
left with this feeling that you're never going to be quite enough because you're pretending to be
mm.
someone that they want you to be
Oh my
rather
gosh,
than
that is
being
so true.
yourself.
I'm having a moment again. I felt that because, yeah. Yeah. So, I'm gonna, maybe they'll listen, but yeah, there was a few things that, a few projects that they handed, it wasn't done, could have been done before, but they thought that somebody new would come in and take over, and it's just that got, yeah. So yeah, let's keep it at that. Okay. Right. Do you believe that being blindsided by corporate politics is unique to women, or do all new entrants to leadership face this challenge?
I think it's
Um,
everyone. I think it's everyone. I think there are some archetypes or personality tropes that mean that some women are more exposed to it. So if we have, I don't know what kind of schoolgirl you were, but we've covered me, right? I was the bookish one, right? And so I booked, right? But I learned early on that
I
it was
was, yeah, I was the overachiever. So yeah,
right.
I was, yes.
There's something about you, and somebody says it at some point that popular girls are paying attention to the wrong thing. Did you ever hear that? Maybe from a parent or a
Mm,
teacher? Or there's somewhere that we hear this idea. There's the girls that study hard and they are good girls that will go on to good careers and good lives. And there are the girls who have lots of friends and
mhm.
they are focusing on the wrong thing. And we internalize this a bit so that when we get
Oh
into the
yeah.
workplace, we work hard on doing the thing like it's school, like we're still there doing our homework, finishing the essay, doing the assignment, and then showing it to people and saying, hey, look how good I did the thing.
Hey, I've done, yeah.
I've done the thing. Look, I did the thing. Where's my recognition for doing the thing? And then we look around the
Mm,
office and we see people not doing the thing, but they're still getting promotions and opportunities. Their teams are getting the resources they need. They're getting exposure in a way that we're not. It's frustrating because we're doing the thing, they're not doing the thing. Why not? And I think that experience happens more frequently to women in the West than it does to men in the West because of the way we're socialized in school. I think that is common to a lot of the women that I speak to who are very high achieving women. But
right.
this gap between being a high achieving individual contributor and being a leader is your ability to get things done through other people, which when you simplify it like that sounds so obvious it's not worth saying, right? As a leader, you get stuff done by getting other people to do that stuff. And how you do that,
Influencing,
yeah,
yeah.
influencing,
Delegation
trust,
and yeah,
credibility.
trust. Yes. Credibility.
So
Yeah.
leadership is at its core politics, right? It's how you work with others, it's how you collaborate, it's
Mm,
how you share information, it's how you make decisions as a group, it's how you leverage your value to the organization to get the things you need for your team, for you as an individual, for your organization. You have an idea, you want other people to listen to it. And I think sometimes we high achieving women go back into that space where we have an idea and then we work on it like it's a school project. I'm going to work really hard on the
mm,
school project and then I'll show it to people and they will do it because it's the best idea. But the gap
mm.
between the best idea and what actually happens is politics. And I think that the
Ooh.
step up when you're a leader is understanding the value of those relationships. What do you think?
Oh, I love it, Libby. That was on point. Yes. Okay, you said it so beautifully. You put it into words where I felt that before and I always stood by that, but I never could understand that. I always think that I'm the odd one out. Like everybody is like trying to finish and I'm like, why? I don't, but it's just, I just cannot conform myself to do that. It's not me. But
Mm,
I like to work with people. I like to communicate. I like to connect. So I get things done that way.
yeah.
When but at the same time, you cannot help but to think if you're actually doing the right thing because all the other people in the organization or at least in your team, your bosses, they're doing it the conventional way. And then it's like it's like I'm taking a risk, but I have this sort of like F that attitude. I'm still gonna do it, and then let's see if they still want me around. So, well, I'm
It's working for you,
I hope,
right?
yeah, it's working for me so far. Oh, wow,
But as to your
beautiful.
question as to
Mm-hmm.
whether or not men or women are blindsided more often, it really depends on what your expectations are of what it means to work as part of an organization, right? Whether you keep your head down doing your work or whether you have your eyes up and you understand what's happening across the organization. And it looks like that might be one gender more than the other, but really it's all leaders. It's anybody who wants to take that step up from individual contributor to leadership. Is about keeping your eyes on everybody else. Because if we couldn't create something which was better and bigger and more exciting as a group than we can as individuals, what's the point in an organization? What's the point in us working
Yes.
together if all we're going to contribute is the sum of every individual? The whole point in coming together, the whole point in leadership is so that the sum becomes greater than its parts. So it's everything
Oh,
is about collaborations and how we come together. But when we hear the word,
yeah.
part of this as well, is when we hear the word office politics, everybody, it's like shoulders up around your ears. You go, oh, I
Like,
hate politics.
no, spare
Yeah,
me from this.
no, not doing that. It's manipulative. It's liars. It's empire builders that are sort of,
Gossip.
yes,
Yeah.
gossip, right? And it might be that the women have a difficult experience of that in school. There's been studies that say that women are more aware of bad politics and it affects us more keenly. So that might be something we've
Oh yeah.
learned
Oh
just
yeah.
to be a little
Oh
bit more
yeah.
aware of it. So that has been shown in studies. So the negative connotations of politics causes lots of women to go, I'm not doing it. I'm going to work hard. My work is going to speak for itself, and I am not going to engage in the process through which decisions are made. But when you talk about collaboration and influence and leadership and inspiration, they're like, oh yeah, I want to do those things. That it's all politics. It's all politics. It's about how you get stuff done. And it sounds like you are getting stuff done.
Wow. Thank you, Libby. You made my day. Okay, next question. So,
Go for it.
can you share an instance where understanding the hidden rules could have changed the trajectory for a female CEO you know?
Can I change one? That rules. There are, let me think of a change the trajectory. So I worked with
I love how comfortable we are right now. I know this is gonna be a very
You're gonna have to edit this bit. So it sounds like
no, Libby. I hope you don't mind though. If you do,
no, you can
I
leave it
keep
in.
my okay. I keep my interviews very I mean I do some editing, but very minor. It's raw and
We'll
it's
keep
as
it.
authentic as it can be.
The process that went through my head there was I went, can I speak about that? Was that long enough ago? If I say this, do they know who they are? How do I break that down? How can I share it but keep it anonymous? Because these are difficult positions that people are holding on to precariously. So one of the
Right.
perhaps unwritten rules is the expectations of, especially in smaller organizations, for the CEO to be aware of absolutely everything that goes on. And there is another paper, which is interesting, is called Heavier Lies Her Crown, which is the expectations of pro-social behavior is higher for women. And pro-social is behavior that helps create community or is beneficial to the individual, right? It's the opposite of antisocial, pro-social behavior.
Oh my god, I just had the same again. I had a revelation. Nicolette is a woman, part of DEI, and she can collaborate and connect. What a perfect. No, I
Right?
understand why that put me. Oh, okay.
And sometimes that's true, but it's because you as an individual are good at these things. Sometimes it's not true. It's not true for all women. Some women are not more pro-social than their male counterparts. But when you aren't, when you don't meet those expectations, there can be a real confusion in the there. But her job is to look after people, and even if they don't express it as clearly as that, there's this real sense of why isn't she looking after people? And so even if it doesn't come comfortably, or if it does come comfortably, when there is a crisis in your team, it can sometimes fall to that female CEO, whether she feels pressure or whether she is drawn to it, to step in to help individuals. So female CEOs who are managing teams with workers that are in a country which is going through crisis. So I've got one in particular I'm thinking of, but I'll name some of different spaces.
Right.
So I've worked with organizations that have a team that were working out of Russia. I've worked with organizations that have a team that were working out of Tel Aviv, a team that were working out of Ukraine, because they have huge tech populations. There's lots of software developers in these areas. And the woman I was working with took personal responsibility for how to help those individuals manage their life during incredible upheaval in their home country, was spending hours speaking to individuals, talking about what you could do in relocating them, what was possible given the political climate in that country, but it drew so much of her attention because she felt this heavy expectation to be able to support these people in a way that I don't know that a male counterpart would have, or men at her level in the organization, that C-suite level, were engaged in the same way. The cost of that for her emotionally and in terms of her diary and in terms of giving over cognitive space to trying to solve these problems for people became unsustainable. You have an organization to run, you want to help people, but it's always challenging to be that there for them. So these unwritten rules that she had internalized, that she needed to look after people. Where does that come from? What does that look like? And how can you understand the different paths that are available to you? What does looking after them look like when you are still looking after the wider organization? How can you support them in a way which doesn't mean you're taking personal responsibility for the individual in a way that's unsustainable? How can you get them professional support, or what does that look like? And so it's like grooves in a record. When we fall into these grooves in a record and you are rewarded for doing it because everybody goes, isn't she caring? Right? We're really pleased to have somebody that cares so much. That reinforcement means that you start doing more of the behavior, which carries a personal cost to you. And so being aware of that and knowing what choices are available to you allows you to take a step back and reassess the best way for you to spend your time. So I think that's a really clear example of where these unwritten rules about expectations that others have of us, that we have of ourselves, and how to react in these situations means we fall into this groove rather than being able to step back and, in terms of hodology, look at all of the different options that are available to us and make a clear-headed choice about what is a sustainable approach to managing this without the expectations that come with your gender.
Well, you help them with this, right? This is what you do.
I try my best, but yes. So there's, but the world is a crazy place right now, right?
Oh,
There are hundreds of managers who are working in safe parts of the world who are responsible for people who are working in parts of the world where they do not have the same privileges. And understanding that dynamic and that relationship is incredibly difficult. I think we are asking a huge amount of managers, right? The expectation, when I started work, I had a boss, right? My boss's job was to make sure I turned up on time, I did what I was paid to do, and I didn't steal too much stationery, right? That was their kind of control from what I was doing. And once a month, they would take us to the pub and they would put 20 quid behind the bar, right? It was not London, so £20 20 years ago went. I had a boss, right? Whereas now what we have, especially if you are on LinkedIn a lot, is reminders or prompts or a changing of the narrative, which suggests that as a leader, you should be responsible for the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of the people that work for you. You are responsible for their career development. You are responsible for creating a space where they can feel like they're truly themselves, even if understanding who they really are is still an ongoing journey for them. That's massive. That's absolutely massive. We're asking this of...
That's a lot on your shoulder, yeah.
Right? But the support has not grown. If you were a counselor or a therapist, you have additional support that's coming in. If you are providing support as a social worker, all of these different helping professions have a framework that supports the people that offer that help. Whereas we're loading this all onto the plates of leadership and then expecting them to deal with incredibly complex situations, incredibly difficult environments for the people they're working in, and to hold a space for them where they feel like they belong to an organization rather than, you know, making sure they turn up on time, they do what they're paid to do. And they don't, I mean, can you even steal stationery anymore? Are we past that? But I think it's huge, right? It's a huge expectation, and I think it's potentially unsustainable. But the pushback needs to come from the individuals as well, where we say, this cannot be on my plate, especially for women. This cannot be on my plate because of the cultural expectations that are related to how I show up in this role.
Oh my God, Libby, you're doing such great work. We need you in Asia. I mean, I don't know if you have somebody here in Asia doing your work right now, but I mean, if you're coming to Asia, you're thinking, I will advocate for you, definitely.
Okay.
Like, yeah. Yes, yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, you just open up a whole new horizon in my head. Like, finally somebody who actually, yeah, there is work done. Like it's in my head, but it's just like, oh, am I alone? Oh, okay, we probably can connect after the interview. Yes. Okay, so okay, given the entrenched nature of corporate politics, do you think women can genuinely change the game from within?
I think the only way to change the game is from within, and it is not happening as quickly as any of us would like. But there are only two. Oh, go on.
Oh, yeah, so I was just asking, like, that again, me thinking out loud. How, okay, if we are going on this trajectory right now, and we have the concept of Hodology that you started, you're a game changer. How long do you think this could take effect? Or sorry, yeah, for the effect to be seen and felt in this day and age? I mean, I don't know.
Lots of people have done lots of studies, but there is.
Yeah, I know you're the statistics.
I'm gonna think of the numbers.
Yeah.
What I find interesting is there are a group of behaviors that are sometimes referred to as agentic, and these are behaviors which are directive, decisive, they're command and control behaviors, and there are behaviors which are referred to as communal, which are collaborative, community-based, nurturing. They're about bringing people together. In the societies, and especially in corporate world, we value agentic more highly than we value communal. Where you see that reflected is in the West, women are assumed to be more communal, more caring and gentle and supportive. And so they are less likely to be seen as leaders. When we talk about seeing a change in the way that leadership works, it's not just about getting more women into the boardroom, it's about getting more of those communal behaviors into the boardroom. So we don't just need more women showing up and leading in a way which feels more closely aligned with who they are. We need more men showing up and leading in a way which feels more closely aligned to who they are. And then when you stop devaluing behaviors which are more commonly associated with women, you stop devaluing women. So in the question of how quickly can we get there, what would make it a whole lot faster is if we have more of our male colleagues showing up with these communal behaviors. And when you look at it in terms of color as well, when you look at the ways in which Black men moderate their behavior or Black women moderate their behavior because they don't want to be seen as too much of one or not enough of the other, it's really just about creating a space where everybody works in the way that they feel comfortable. Like you, when you joined your organization, right? You were like, this is how I work. It's giving everybody that space to say, so if you're a woman and you want to be really directive and command and control, that's fine. Nobody's going, oh, that feels weird. Why is she like that? If you're a guy and you want to show up and you want to be really caring and nurturing and supportive, everybody's that's fine. There's no, it's weird.
That is
why
his way.
That?
Yeah.
Right? He should behave in this way and she should behave in that way. And so it's that diversity of thought for the individuals, which is much easier to measure when you count men and women than it is when you, because how do you measure how people think about stuff, right? Which, if we bring it full circle, brings me back to my kind of DEI initiatives, right? How does counting women, but it is a measure and that's the one that we use. But whether or not we change it from within, it's really about creating these coalitions, understanding that the only way to change something is through a network, creating that network within your organization so that you change what it means to be a leader. There isn't one type of person that's a leader.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Right? Yes.
For reach.
Everyone, if you want to be, you find a way to do it yourself. It's creating that network of individuals. So the only way we are going to change the game is from within. The only way we will do that is through critical mass. We do that through creating coalitions, collaborating. We do that through politics and encouraging everybody to lead in a way which feels right to them, rather than to try and fit a path that was chosen for them at a cultural level or an organizational level or a team level to lead in the way you want to. And then when anybody can be a leader and we equally value a good mix of communal and agentic, like you want to have that somebody who's going to get stuff done, right? You need that mix.
Yes.
When you start equally valuing the mix, then you start to see real diversity in those decision-making groups.
Libby, when are you going to write a book on all of this? Because I want to buy it. I mean, I will be listening to this podcast, but then it would be nice to have a book like, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Libby Vincent.
Out. Yeah, why don't I do that? I'll get right onto it.
Oh my God. That would be awesome. I would definitely be doing. Yeah. I would be getting your copies of that and distributing it. Here you go. Because I've got a lot of friends in women in corporate world, and they're also struggling.
I will speak to all of them.
Right. Okay. A little bit more. No, I'm not taking your time too much. Do you have a 10 o'clock? Okay. Do you have to leave?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. Oh my God. But okay. I think we're just gonna close it here. But Livy, thank you so, so much for your great insights. And I don't know, I don't have you on Instagram, but I'll be snipping this when this airs and you can share it in your network as well.
Oh, I'm so excited and I loved speaking to you. Thank you for inviting me.
Likewise. Thank you so much. Let's connect offline
Absolutely.
afterwards.
Let's do it. Have a wonderful day and I will speak to you again for sure.
Yes. Thank you so much, Livy.